I'm Katrina Johnson from New Sky Consulting, and you're watching the CATS channel, supporting young people with disabilities to live their best and their brightest lives. Welcome back to week 4 of our series on self-managing arrangements under the NDIS. Welcome back, Kathy.
Hello, Katrina.
Guess what we're talking about today?
So over to
me. So as we start to accelerate towards the NDIS, one of the things that people will need to get an idea of is their readiness and wanting to self-manage their arrangements. But how? How do you go about actually assessing your readiness? So I know over previous blogs we've talked about what it takes to self-manage. So we've talked about all the tasks and all the functions, and then we've talked about the foundation work. So I guess I'd like to give our viewers a few tips on how to go about actually assessing it. So I thought I might start talking about how I go about assessing my readiness for some big things in my life. Now, I don't know about you, but I'm a bit of a prolific journaler. Okay. So when I'm trying to look at something that's coming up and I'm trying to figure out whether it's something I should do or if I'm ready for, I really like to do a massive brain dump get everything out of my head onto paper. Right. And then once I've got it on paper, I can kind of mind map my way through or create some kind of system of figuring it out. Okay. That's what I like to do.
Okay.
Yeah. What about you? How would you suggest? That's probably where I would start. But what about you?
I probably would do a checklist a little bit like that. But before I'd get to that point, I would have spent a lot of time thinking about it.
Yeah.
Okay, thinking and reading and probably looking at things on television or talking with people I knew to hear how would people go about doing this and how do they learn about that. I'd be doing probably a bit of an environmental scan, if you like, or a check in my community on who did I know who was successful doing things. So I can recall all those years ago talking with the lady in the shoe shop, believe it or not.
Yeah.
Okay, and I said to her, how did she go about starting her business? Or how did she go about thinking about why was her particular shoe shop going to be like the best one in our local town? And it was really insightful because she actually talked about coming from a country background and not having any experience in that way. And I guess I identified with her on that because before I became involved in all of this, I used to be a truck driver on a farm and I didn't have any exposure to these sort of fancy checklists or anything like that. Yeah. So it was important for me to hear from people that I could see had made a success of things. I mean, that's just one way of doing it.
Yeah. You do your research.
Yeah,
you figure out what your questions were and research them.
Yeah, and I think it was also about thinking, well, how would I feel about doing something? And then doing a bit of a test of how would I manage? Just doing a little, like putting my toe in the water, for example, I said that we'd been self-directing since 1994 and I took it over completely in the year 2000. Well, that meant that in that time there was a service provider in there. So that service was my backstop. Yeah. So to start with, they would bring me in for, the interviews for staff. Yeah. And I was part of the team. It wasn't all of my responsibility to make the decision or to organise the meetings, and then gradually they pulled back while I stepped in. Yeah. So sometimes it takes a little bit of time to actually test it as well. I mean, it comes back to what your personality is really all about, I think. There's many different ways of doing it, but it's going to be very important for people to have thought about how ready are they to pick up the responsibilities that they want to pick up, and how are they going to explain to the NDIA that they are able to do this?
To do it. Yeah. Yes, exactly. I think that you picked up on 3 things there. One is what can I do, what do I need to learn, and what I don't want to do, which is quite easy to do when you're looking at the tasks that we talked about. You can list the tasks and you can say can do, can't do, don't want to do. So you can quickly figure out what's there and what you need to do about each of those. Outsource, learn,
don't bother.
Yeah, there's ways. I guess the foundation stuff is a little bit trickier in terms of how to assess that. how would you suggest people go about asking themselves and answering those really tough questions, or those more challenging, reflective questions?
I think they've got to see the point of it in the first place. So often people, dive in, or they've been told that, look, you can manage the money, or you can just employ staff, without actually understanding what does that really mean. If you've never done it before, that might sound easy to do, and of course it does sound easy to do until you come across something that's a bit challenging, and then you realise what you don't know. I think this, again, in that lead up stage, is about who do you know, who are your allies, who are going to support you, because I think it's a community around a self-managed arrangement, if you like, and the community might be a few people, it might be a lot. Certainly I know many people who've had like a circle of friends around them, who've kept them going over the time, and the circle of friends have been the ones who've actually asked those harder questions, or have said, are you serious? What are you thinking? Or what are we going to need to be able to do this properly? So again, it's going to be an individual situation. Not everybody thinks that that's important, Katrina. And I guess that's going to be the learning that they have. And of course, realising that even to say to the NDIA, look, like you said, there's some things I want to do, some things I'm not sure about, and some things I don't want to do. It doesn't mean that you don't change that, because it could be the thing that you don't want to do, it's because you're afraid of it, or you don't know how to do it, or you don't know anyone who can help you with that. But over time you might find that you can with help, or you might have learnt the skills, or you might want to try it. So I think there is that flexibility.
And it's a journey. It's a massive learning curve. In all areas. So I guess you're saying for the foundation stuff, you can ask yourself those questions and figure it out for yourself, and you can enlist those that you trust and do some discussion kind of stuff, and get them to ask you some of the tough ones. Might involve pizza and wine
and barbecues
and whatever to make it happen, but that's sounds like a good way to start,
and a courageous way to start. I think as you said before, it is a journey, and if you accept that that's what it is, it's not perfect by any means, that you'll learn. I think there's great opportunity with this. A great opportunity for the NDIA to learn as well.
I agree too, and I think that in doing this sort of stuff before you get to the NDIA, would have to make that meeting a little bit smoother.
Because it's not just about the plan for the person with a disability. I've heard so many times, you've got to have a plan and a vision for the person. I understand that. But it's also about what's our ability to manage all of that and to do it properly, and to be a considered supporter as well, to make that plan and that vision work.
And if you've done this work, you go in with more prepared for that, and to have that conversation.
Well, I believe so. The
Excellent.
proof of the pudding
is yet to be seen.
That's right.
Well, thanks again. That was good.
Thank you.
Let's go get some pizza and wine and have some tough discussions about beliefs and values.
Could be interesting.
Thank you, Kathy. Figuring this stuff out can be a bit overwhelming, and that's why Kathy and I have developed a little guide and an ebook to help families and people with disabilities navigate their way through this, and figure out what kind of self-management fund option might be best for you. So I'm going to include the link to the ebook in the description box below. So go ahead, and it's free, download that and get started.